And welcome back. In most jobs, experience is a huge asset, and when it comes to judges, it's even more important. But New York State has a mandatory retirement age of 70 for its judges. Now, for years, it's been granting waivers and allowing people to continue serving on the bench past their 70th birthday. But it recently halted those exemptions, claiming it needs to cut costs. But now, dozens of judges who don't want to leave, they are suing the state, claiming age discrimination. The mandatory retirement age has always been controversial, and when I spoke with Jonathan LIPPMAN, the former chief judge of the New York Court of Appeals, he told me it was a bad idea.
It's a mistake to diminish the wisdom and experience that you have from judges who have sat on the bench, for many years, have gotten a really irreplaceable experience, and I think that people should be judged on their skills and not on their age.
Apparently, though, Mr. LIPPMAN has had a change of heart. He just signed on to an amicus brief supporting his successor, Janet DeFiore's move to end the extension for judges who wanted to stay on. Let me bring in my guest now, Justice John Leventhal. He is suing for age discrimination. He's 72, and his attorney, David Scharf, is also here. And to me, guys, this is in two parts. There's the practicality and the questions as to the motivations for this, but then there's also the consequences. And Justice, I'd like to start with you. The idea of 70 being a magic number, what do they say now? 50 is the new 70, or 70 is the new 50, excuse me. We lose a lot, don't we, if all of a sudden justices maybe are in their prime, we tell them, we don't need you anymore, basically hand in your robe. Give the idea of the consequences if 46 judges are basically told by the state of New York they're no longer needed.
Well, the opinion that you just espoused is agreed to by every good government group, bar organization that has weighed in on this issue and has supported the older judges and criticized the administrative board for this decision. You're going to lose not only the experienced judges, but a friend of mine once said on television, I think it was on your show less than 5 years ago, that it is a mistake to diminish the wisdom and experience of judges who sat on the bench for many years and who have gotten irreplaceable experience in judgment. People should be judged on their skill and their experience and not on their age. That good friend of mine who said this was former Chief Judge LIPPMAN. And he even understands that we have a wealth of experience and knowledge by dint of our years of service. And the fiction that this is going to avoid layoffs is not so. When you eliminate these 46 judges, you lose 92 chamber staff, including experienced attorneys. By terminating the 39 trial judges, there'll be no need to staff their courtrooms with a court clerk, court officer, and court reporter. This will result in a concomitant layoffs of 255. And let me give you an analogy, Richard. The best analogy I can give you is that if a hospital were to eliminate doctors, there would be no need for orderlies, nurses, and technicians. And who would be the loser here? The citizenry. There's going to be a tremendous backlog on appeals, on trials, on dispositions, on criminal cases. The citizenry of the state of New York are going to be the losers. This is very short-sighted. If you don't have judges, you don't need court staff.
David, we can have a debate as to what should the number be, but if the numbers, meaning the budgetary concerns, and we saw we came into this segment with what Justice DeFiore, her argument is this is painful, but it's necessary. We got to find the savings. What I don't get is the judge, he's going to get a pension, basically the same number, not working now, than he is if he showed up in his robe. I don't get where the savings are. What's really going on here? Because the math doesn't add up.
Well, the math doesn't add up, Richard. And the reason the math doesn't add up is because everyone's being myopic. OCA, the court system, is simply saying, hey, if it's not in our budget, then we're creating a savings, forgetting completely that the state is the one that has having the budget crisis, and it's the state that needs to find the savings. So they're just saying, take it from a different pocket, and look, we're going to be heroic. What's really going on here is that there is blatant discrimination, replacement of senior judges by junior judges that are going to be handpicked by the chief judge to put them in places where she wants them. That's what's going on here. Because you look at what has happened during this pandemic, there have been additional judges that were appointed to the Court of Claims and brought in to be acting Supreme Court judges. It's also completely contradictory when they say there will be no miscarriage of justice or slowdown in the justice system because they intend to bring in additional judges. So if they're bringing in additional judges, they're not firing anybody, as the chief judge says. Then what is the savings being achieved? They're not even saving any money based upon what they're talking about. And then when you look at the pension that they're now going to start drawing on, they're actually hurting the state. I think OCA really needs to take a close look at its own bloated budget and take a critical look and see where are the other places that cuts can be made? Where are there administrative costs that can be narrowed down? As Judge Leventhal said before, if you're going to cut out the judges, you're cutting out the administration of justice.
David, the other thing is, I've covered every single press conference Governor Cuomo's done, and he's been consistent in that he, like other governors, is holding out that there's going to be a state aid package, and he's pushed off budgetary decisions and consequently layoffs until at least they know their operating budget, what they're going to have coming in. Why? It seems to me that this is an outlier. This is one place where all of a sudden, come the end of the year, people are being handed pink slips where, unless I'm missing it, I'm not seeing that in other areas of the state.
Well, this is the only area of the state, and it's supposedly a mandate that's come from the governor. But as you said, Richard, all public statements that have been made has don't fire people. Let's wait and see how it goes. And OCA has forged ahead and has said and made the centerpiece of its budget cuts 46 justices, our 4 clients, senior appellate division judges. And look at what the consequence is. The first department has gone from sitting 5 judges 4 days a week to sitting 4 judges 3 days a week. The second department, with Justice Leventhal is a judge, is now going down to 2 days a week. My goodness, the second department is a court where they're backlogged 2-3 years. Now you're cutting everything in half. Can you imagine a litigant in Suffolk County who's got a personal injury case that he's trying to get to trial, and the company that he's suing brings an appeal, and that appeal is now going to take 4 years? That means from the beginning of their case, which has already taken 2 years to get to summary judgment, is now going to take another 4 years before it can go back to trial. You are talking about the classic justice delayed, justice denied.
We're already seeing circumstances where people had settlements in place and they're already reducing what they're willing to pay because they know the judge is no longer going to be on the bench. Your Honor, let me bring you back in because, a lot of the judges I know that are involved in this suit have never sued anyone in their lives before, and it feels bizarre to them to be on the other side of this, but they feel abandoned because many of them have worked through the pandemic, and they're also seeing particular areas like the Bronx and Queens, they'll be disproportionately hurt. I can only imagine when the world opens up again, the backlog of cases, what happens to our justice system beyond what David mentioned, justice delayed? Are there going to be a lot of unintended consequences without somebody sitting at the front of the courtroom?
Well, look, you have criminal cases where people are incarcerated, and when you have an appeal which is 2-3 years old, someone is staying in who may succeed on that appeal. We are the busiest appellate court in the country, and to have our sittings cut down from 4 days a week to 2 days a week sometimes, and 3 days a week other times, we're going to increase the backlog by years. We're doing this not only for ourselves, we're doing this for the citizenry and the litigants who appear before our courts.
I read that you're starting to clear out your office. I know that obviously you're hoping for a favorable ruling here, and I'll talk about some of the specifics with David that in a second. Do you feel betrayed, Your Honor? Do you feel betrayed? Do you think that this is going to turn out the right way, or are you going to finish packing up your office?
I am hoping for the best, preparing for the worst. But regarding betrayal, can I give you my personal experience? In 1996, when I was a trial judge, there was a terrible murder of Galina Komar in a domestic violence case. The court system turned to me to start the first felony domestic violence court in the nation. And as part of that duties, I handled cases of elder abuse. In 2001, when a scathing grand jury report criticized the way guardianship cases were being handled, I was asked to take on the added assignment of doing guardianship, protecting elders from abuse, including financial exploitation. Now I'm 70. Who's there to protect this elderly and the people situated like us? That's the irony of the thing. We always did this for other people, and now, yes, I feel betrayed, I feel unappreciated, and I feel put upon.
David, finally, the case itself that you've brought, I know potentially you could have an end-of-year hearing on this. With COVID, everything obviously is crazy. What's the expectations you have and the timeline? Or are we going to have a gap here before we finally get a decision?
Well, right now there's a TRO in place that prevents our judges and their staff from having their roles in the court system terminated. We are hoping now that OCA has put in its position on the merits that we will have a merits hearing before the end of the year. We know Justice Baisley has everything before him, including our motion for a permanent injunction. And we remain as confident today as we did in the beginning that we will achieve justice for our clients. These are constitutional violations. These are violations of their human rights under the New York State and New York City laws. And we're looking forward to vindicating that and getting a full and fair hearing. And we feel we are getting that.
Well, as a non-barrister, my formed legal opinion is one of the craziest things I've ever heard, and hopefully this thing's going to turn out the right way. Your Honor, thank you, and I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully justice will prevail here.
And thank you for having us.
And coming up next, our legal panel will join us. For the next couple of segments, we're going to kick things off with all the pardons just issued by our president, and also discuss why they were so unusual, in some cases disturbing, but also whether or not he's actually going to try and pardon those closest to him.